Do you ever feel like you just don't fit in? Yeah. When I was at seminary a number of years ago, I made a conscious effort to eat at a different table every meal. So we had a dining hall for all the dorms, and I made this decision. Every breakfast, every lunch, every dinner, I'm going to sit with a different group of people. I'm like, there are 1,000 people here, man. So many people to get to know. Well, I limit myself to the same 6 or 8 every day. So I was bouncing around to every table. And one day, I grab my tray, I look around, I see a table. I'm like, I haven't been there in a while. So I go over, and I'm like, hey, can I sit here? They're like, sure. So I have a seat. And then I recognized that they were having a theological debate over lunch. And I said, excuse me, sorry, time out, sorry to interrupt, but are you having a theological debate? And they said, yeah, we are. I said, okay, cool. And I grabbed my tray and I turned around, I was like, hey, no offense or anything, right? Cool, you do that. But we talk about theology all day in class. I just need a break from a debate, so I'm going to go somewhere else. And they're like, whatever, and they continued their debate. As I think back on that moment in time and on that event, now many years later, I wonder if I might have had a different motive. That I just didn't fit in. Like I was afraid I was going to get there and they were going to pull me into this debate and I'm just not going to have a clue what they're talking about. I was the student body president. I was the head over all of the RAs. I know, that was a big deal. On the outside, anyway. On the inside, not so much, and I didn't want them to find out that I was just a big stupid head. I had just a worse case of imposter syndrome. I was studying to be a pastor. I didn't want them to find out that I was just a fraud. And in a lot of ways, I felt like a scared little kid. 20 plus years removed from that, I still feel that way much, if not most of the time. I go to my kids' sporting events, and there will be a group of dads standing around talking, and I have the opportunity to go up and talk to them. But I wonder in my mind, what if they find out I'm not as cool as they are? Which is, it's obvious, I'm not. What if they find out that I don't have as much money as they do? Or don't have as cool of tools, or as cool of a job, or what if they find out I don't know as much about this sport or this league as they do? What if I'm not as good of a dad? I don't want them knowing. So I just stand back. And maybe you feel that way. Maybe you feel like an imposter in your job. Maybe you feel like you're an imposter at home. Maybe you feel like you're an imposter at your kids' sporting events or in the group of moms or dads who pick up their kid from school. Worse yet, maybe you feel like an imposter here, where you're thinking, I just don't fit in. What if they find out about me? What if they know what I've done? Will I still be welcome here? They won't accept me. And so you slink back into the shadows. I have good news for you today if that's you. But you're going to need to give me a couple minutes, okay? As you heard earlier, we're walking through a series of stories of the Old Testament called S'more Campfire Stories. My name's Fitz. I'm one of the pastors here, and I got a new shirt. Thanks. If you're wondering why that's funny, you weren't here last week, so go back and watch the video. A few weeks ago, as we're walking through these Old Testament stories, Jordan, my friend and our newest pastor, our executive pastor, made a rather bold declaration that for a new guy especially, that his story was the best story we were covering in this series. Bold declaration, Cotton. And I'm not going to argue that fact, or that opinion, really. But I will say that the person who we're going to talk about today has one of the two best names in the entire Bible, and his name is Mephibosheth. Say Mephibosheth. Not good. And in case you're wondering, the other cool name in the Bible is Dorcas. So that's, just think about it. It's fun name. Anyway, Mephibosheth is probably not the most well name in the Bible. It's not David, Abraham, Moses, Esther, Ruth, Mary. It's not any of them. But I would suggest that his story probably gives us the greatest understanding of God's grace than anyone else's in the entire Bible. So who was Mephibosheth? At the most basic level, he was a descendant of the king. And this would have been a pretty sweet deal. The best case scenario, he could have been in line for the throne. In the ancient Near East, kingship was primarily hereditary, so it would be passed down to later generations. So in my family, if I were the king, I would pass it down to Colin, my oldest son, and then he would later pass it on to whoever his son was going to be, and so on. So Mephibosheth, he was the grandson to the king, which meant he was just 2 generations away from potentially being the king. Now, I say potentially because he was just one of the king's grandsons, so maybe he won't be the king, but he'll at least be in the family of the king, which again is a pretty sweet deal. To have that access and to have the benefits of having that familial relationship with royalty, it's a pretty good deal. I had a friend years ago tell me a story. He and his wife were watching the funeral procession of President Ronald Reagan. It's a couple hours long, and they're sitting on the couch watching this thing. And partway through, his wife turns to him and says, "I want you to be president." And he was so honored by this, like, wow, she thinks I'm pretty awesome. She thinks I've got some leadership chops. She thinks a lot about my character. That's so honoring. And she said, "I want them to do this for me when you die." Honor right out the window. But when you're king or connected to the king, it comes with certain perks. It comes with a certain way of life. So let's just say that the path to the good life was laid out for Mephibosheth. It's hard for me to say even. But he did have 2 obstacles that he had to overcome. The first obstacle would be that he had to overcome his ancestry, who his grandfather, the king, was. Which sounds weird that that's an obstacle, but it was a guy named Saul. You may have heard his name before. He was the first king of Israel, and while it ended badly, it started off really good. Israel wanted a king, just like all the other nations had. So God, through the prophet Samuel, who we spoke about a few weeks ago, said, "Anoint Saul. He's going to be the first king of Israel." And so he was. Pretty great deal. Things did not stay awesome for very long, however. It went south pretty quickly. And some of that had to do with Saul's jealousy towards David. See, David worked with Saul, worked alongside Saul, and one day David, while their army was fighting the Philistines, killed a guy named Goliath. You've probably heard that story. And as a result, he became very popular, like Jeremiah Smith popular in Columbus. Like, woo, OH. Thank you. Like Taylor Swift popular, like Dennis Miller popular in the Miami Valley, like super, woohoo again, yes. And Saul became so jealous of David, he did what any of you would do if you were jealous of someone else. He tried to kill him. I hope that's not you, but 5 times, as a matter of fact. You would think, like, after the first time, it's like, oh man, what am I doing? He's like, no, I can get this right. I'm going to keep trying. Long story short, David evades all of the murder attempts, eventually becomes king, and Saul, in disgrace, ends up taking his own life in the midst of battle. So what does this mean for Mephibosheth? Put yourself in David's shoes for just a minute. How would you treat the family of the man who tried to kill you? Probably not going to be on the Christmas card list. Probably not thinking, oh, we're having a cookout. Who should we invite? We should invite the family of the guy who tried to off me. Probably not going to happen. This means that any hope and faith that Mephibosheth had in the good life was out the window. And he had to live into this new reality, one that was far inferior to the one that he thought he was in line for. The second obstacle was his physical limitations. Another of Saul's sons, Ishbosheth, was killed, and when that happened, there weren't a whole lot of people left to defend Saul and his family. And so Mephibosheth's nurse, knowing that he was just a young boy in an effort to protect him, picked him up and fled. But as she hurried to leave, he fell and became disabled. His name was Mephibosheth. So what's the big deal? What's the big deal? So he's got a physical disability. So what? Well, take away the fact that it makes life somewhat more difficult for him in some ways. But there was also a social and a religious stigma attached to his disability. In the book of Leviticus, Moses, he's writing out the stipulations for those who could become priests and bring offerings to God, and he writes this: "No man who has any defect may come near. No man who is blind or lame, disfigured or deformed, no man with a crippled foot or hand." So when someone had a disability like Mephibosheth had, they were simply not welcome at the table. There was no place for them at the table. So Mephibosheth, instead of being someone in close proximity to the king, finds himself in a pretty bleak place. A descendant of the guy who tried to murder the now king, who has the physical limitations that make him not good enough. If anyone doesn't fit in, if anyone doesn't measure up, it is Mephibosheth. In fact, his name means from the mouth of shame. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for that cool name. That's great. But David is the king. And as you may know, he would become the greatest king in all of Israel. And now he's sitting on the throne. Life is good. He's achieved peace from all of his enemies, which was a really difficult thing to do. And we read in 2 Samuel chapter 7 that the Lord had given him rest from all his enemies around him. But then he remembered his past. He remembered how he had to run to save his life. And he wondered, is there anyone still left from the house of Saul? And so if you watch movies, you can probably hear the tense music rising at this point. Like if they were making a movie, there would be a close-up of David's face, sweat on his brow, and you're thinking, it is go time. It's like Keanu Reeves and John Wick go time. Saul's family, they're going to get theirs now. But we read instead that David asked, is there anyone still left of the house of Saul to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake? Not destroy, not exact revenge on, show kindness to. You see, Jonathan was Saul's son, and he and David were best friends, so much so that Jonathan saved David's life from a murder attempt from Saul. So he said, is there anyone left that I can show kindness to? And he's told there is still a son of Jonathan, and he is lame in both feet. Mephibosheth, his primary identity is that he is lame. It's that he is broken. Some of you, your primary identity that you've given yourself is that you are broken. because of something you've done or something that's been done to you. That's not your primary identity. We'll get to that in a minute. So David sends for Mephibosheth. It's got to be terrifying. Remember, he already ran for his life once when he was a young boy. Now he's being brought to the king whose grandfather tried to murder. Scary proposition. But David says, dude, chill. He says, don't be afraid, for I will surely show you kindness for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table. I didn't bring you here to harm you. I'm not interested in revenge. I'm interested in taking care of you. Your prospects at best are slim. You have this disability which is going to affect your ability to earn a living. You've got the social stigma of being the grandson of the guy who tried to murder the king and of a failed king. So let me take care of you. You will always eat at my table. All of Saul's land is going to be yours. And we read later that Mephibosheth ate at David's table like one of the king's sons. He didn't just take care of me. He said, you're my child. You're going to eat at my table like all of my other kids. You felt like you didn't fit in. You felt like you didn't belong. But I'm here to tell you that you are my kid. You are my child. And so let's rewind to the question that we started with. Do you ever feel like you just don't fit in? Let's make it contextual. Specifically in this Christian life, in this attempt that we're all on in this journey of following Jesus, do you ever feel like you don't fit in, like you don't measure up? Like you can't carry your own in comparison to everyone else. You hear people being asked, how are you? And they're like, stressed, not blessed. And you're like, what? And you see how holy and happy everyone is, and you're like, I never read my Bible. I never pray. I know the stuff I look at on the internet. My anxiety is at an all-time high. My wife and I had a major blow-up on the way to church this morning. My kids don't like me. I took the bag of my dog's poop and put it in the neighbor's trash can. And you look at your life and you think, I'm just a mess. I'm broken. And maybe it's because of the things that you've done. Or maybe like Mephibosheth's nurse, it's something that happened to you. Totally outside of your control. People have let you down. The people supposed to care for you have hurt you, and you find yourself broken. If that's where you are and you feel like you don't fit in, you feel like you don't measure up in this thing called following Jesus, I want you to hear something. Just like Mephibosheth, you are a child of the king. You're a child of the king. I want you to say, I'm a child of the king. Can you say it one more time like you believe it? Yeah, you're a child of the king. You are. You know the things in your closet. You're a child of the king. You know your family history. You are a child of the king. You can't do the things everyone else does. You are a child of the king. You're broken because of something that's been done to you. You're a child of the king. That's your identity, not your brokenness. King Jesus says to you, don't be afraid. I only mean good for you. I want you to eat at my table and live your life as my kid because you are a child of the king. But what about? There is no what about. If you've said yes to Jesus, Jesus wants you to pull up a chair and have a seat at his table and live forever as his child. And that's grace. The unconditional, the undeserved, the radical, ridiculous love of God that there's nothing we can do to earn it or receive it, but God just pours it out on us anyways. Author Brendan Manning, who's done more for me in my understanding of the grace of God more than anybody in my life, writes this, and grace calls out, you are not just a disillusioned old man who may die soon, a middle-aged woman stuck in a job and desperately wanting to get out, a young person feeling the fire in the belly begin to grow cold. You may be insecure, inadequate, mistaken, or pot-bellied. Death, panic, depression, and disillusionment may be near you, but you are not just that. You are accepted. Never confuse your perception of yourself with a mystery that you really are accepted. Never confuse your brokenness with the fact that you really are accepted. Jesus welcomes you to his table. You fit in there. You belong there. You are a child of the King. And with that comes another truth. Every person you encounter is a child of the King. Every person you encounter is a child of the King. If they said yes to Jesus, they're a child of the King. If they haven't said yes, you know what? They're a potential child of the King. This grace, it's not just for you. It's for every person you encounter. It's for your spouse. It's for your kids. It's for your parents and the rest of your family, no matter how weird they are. And you're like, my family's not weird. Then it's you. But God's grace is for you too. It's for your coworkers. It's for the people who blend into the background and you never even see, like the checkout people at the grocery store. It's for your neighbors, even the ones who work on their monster truck while you're trying to sleep. That was my reality in our first house. Dude would start firing up Mud Muncher at 11 o'clock at night. And I'm like, really? Now? God's grace is for him. God's grace is for the people who couldn't possibly see the world differently than you do. The people who it seems like their sole reason for existence is to get on your last nerve. All of them. Every last one of them is a child or a potential child of the King. God's grace is available to you and to every one of them just as much as it is for you. Paul reminds us of this truth in his second letter to the church in Corinth when he writes this, for Christ's love compels us because we are convinced that one died, everyone say for all. Good. And therefore all died, and he died, say for all. For all, excellent. That those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. Again, the key words here are for all. He died for all. Every person is a child or a potential child of the King who he longs to welcome at his table. So you know what that means. You might need to treat them differently than you do now. Imagine for a moment that Prince Harry or Prince William or any one of the kids, George or Charlotte or Louis or Archie or Lilibet, they come, yes, I researched all the names. Any of them come to your house for a visit, my suspicion is that it's not going to be business as usual. You're going to do a deep clean. You're going to get to all those home repair projects that you've been putting off. You're going to get your yard professionally manicured and landscaped, get you some fresh mulch. If it's one of the grandkids, you're going to have the best snacks and you're going to upgrade to the commercial-free version of Netflix and Disney+. You're going to pay that $7, right? You're going to go out of your way to make sure that everything is perfect. Why? Because they are a child of the King. You want to treat them with the way that their status calls for and deserves. And what is their status? They are a child of the King. And every person you encounter is similar, except instead of being children of the throne of England, they are children or potential children of the one true King, King Jesus. How much more respect and deference and honor and kindness and love does that mean we need to show them? So, 23 years and 1 week to the day, I sat across the table from the person who would become my favorite person in the world, my now wife, Marcy. We were on our first date. Went to a nice Cajun restaurant in Cincinnati, had an awesome meal, and went to a show across the street and came back and had some bananas Foster for dessert. And we talked and we laughed, and at one point she grabbed my hand and she thought, what am I doing? It's a first date. And during that meal, I thought to myself, I'm going to marry her. Didn't tell her that, because that would be weird. A few years after that, I sat across the table from someone else, Brennan Manning, who I quoted earlier. Our senior pastor was on sabbatical, and we lined up guest preachers to come in and preach for the weekend, and we had the honor, the privilege of having him come in and preach for the weekend, and I got to host him, and I got to have dinner with him at a restaurant, and I just tried to soak up every word that he said while he sat there and enjoyed his ice cream cone like a little kid. Both of those table experiences were incredible and wholesome and life-changing. But even more transformative was the time in 1982 when Jesus said, Mike, have a seat. I want you to pull up a chair at my table. I know you don't feel like you fit in. I know you don't feel like you measure up. I know you feel like you're broken because of what's happened to you. I don't care about that stuff. I want you to have a seat at my table because, Mike, I want you to be my child. And I pulled up a chair and had a seat. And every one of you who has said yes to Jesus, you're at the table with me. You're alongside me. Yeah, you've been broken. Yeah, you made decisions that you didn't want to make. But you know what? Those aren't your identity. Your identity is you are a child of the King, and you belong at the table of Jesus. And you're alongside me. And every last person that we encounter either already has a chair at the table or has one waiting for them. And Jesus is inviting them to come and have a seat and eat with him forever. So if we're going to be at this table with Jesus forever, let's start loving each other and ourselves like we're going to do for the rest of eternity, and let's start it right now. Jesus, I don't get it. I don't understand your love for us. I don't understand your love for me. You pour it out time and time again, and you welcome us to your table. And obviously we've done nothing to deserve it, but Jesus, thank you for your love. Thank you for having a chair for us. Thank you that our choices are not our primary identity. Thank you that our brokenness is not our primary identity. Thank you that the things that have been done to us are not our primary identity, but that our primary identity is that we are children of the King. And Jesus, if there are people in this room, people watching us online that have not said yes to you yet, that have not accepted your invitation to pull up a chair at the table, I pray that today would be the day they say, yes, Jesus, I want to eat at your table forever. Forgive me for the things I've done. Take away the things that have happened to me and make my new identity as a child of the King. And I can't wait to spend eternity with them. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
If you have been blessed by this video, feel free to comment on what spoke to you. Hit the like button and share this with a friend who needs encouragement today. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on any of the latest videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.